So this is the form factor. Hugh Taylor with us from attheraces.com. You know Hugh's input into the website very much about finding winners. And it's great, Hugh, we can have a little bit of fun and try and learn something over the next half an hour by trying to work out if, as punters, we're a shrewdie or a bit of a mug. And looking at one or two of your questions you've got lined up, I think I know which camp I'm in. But should we crack on?
Fine, yeah.
Because
let's. I'm hoping I might learn something as well.
What's interesting will be the instinctive reaction that our viewers have to each of these questions you pose. Okay, so the first one that Hugh puts to us is that a trainer states that he's booked a £7 claimer to negate the penalty of his recent winner. There are a couple of horses with penalties running today. Is this likely to make the horse a better bet or a worse bet? Well, I don't like backing horses necessarily, backing blindly horses with penalties anyway. And I don't know, I think the rush to find a £7 claimer might mean that, that this is not such a good bet as you would initially take the view. So I'm going to say on this one, Hugh, my view is that I would rather not back this horse in question than back it.
Yeah, there's not necessarily right or wrong answers to all these questions I'm going to pose, but my view is that you're better off just leaving a standard jockey on unless you think that your claimer is particularly good value. I don't think that a £7 claimer becomes more attractive just because the horse is running under a penalty. Your claimer is either good value for his claim or not, and I don't think it's specific to a particular instance because a horse has just won a race. And you can see, if you look at the screen, this is a record of horses carrying a penalty of £5 or more on the flat since 2000. The ones that are not ridden by a claimer have a much higher strike rate and a higher return on investment than those that were ridden by a £7 claimer. Now, it may be on occasions the horse has gone up to 10 stone or more than that, and the trainer feels the horse just can't carry such a big weight and therefore he wants to take the weight off the back. But that could apply to any circumstance where a horse has got a big weight. So I'm wary of it when I read comments saying, oh, well, we're claiming off him to negate the penalty. I don't think it does any more than it negates being a badly handicapped horse. A claimer is either good value for his claim or not, but I don't think he's more value just because the horse won last time out and has got a penalty.
That's interesting, isn't it? See, Smalib Monterg runs today with a £7 penalty, with a £7 claimer on board, Christopher Ward. So, and that'll be a short price. But as I say, my gut feeling is to sort of let them run anyway, you know.
Yeah, the point I'm making is I don't think you can say that a claimer negates a rise in the weight either, or negates a claim. He's either good value or not. Yeah. And you just take his, whether you think he's good value for his claim or not, at face value, not necessarily depending on the situation.
Okie doke. Let's move on then to question 2 in our search to find whether you're a shrewdie or a bit of a mug. Which of these 3 laying strategies would have proved most profitable in recent years? So, of course, you're thinking about laying these horses rather than backing them. An odds-on chance in a novice chase, favourite in flat listed races, or favourites in flat selling races? Well, I've long been of the view, Hugh, that backing the short ones in novice chase is the way to go. So that one's out straight away for me. And I would have thought, just in terms of class, that favourites for flat listed races would be more consistent generally than favourites in sellers. So I would have thought, which of these laying strategies? Probably laying favourites in flat sellers. That's my guess.
Okay, I'm glad that I agree with what you say about novice chasers, because historically favourites, odds-on favourites in novice chasers have done much better than you would suspect by the number of comments you hear about, or you'd have to be mad to back a short price favourite in a novice chase. Surprisingly, perhaps, the one that you would have done worst on in recent years is laying the favourites in flat sellers.
Didn't take long for my cream to write.
We should have some stats to hand for this as well. But yeah, you can see 2007 to 2012. This is return on investment. This is how much you get back for every pound stake. 95 pence for every pound staked in odds-on favourites in novice chasers. So you'd lost 5 pence in the pound. Not a huge loss. Favourite in flat listed races, for some reason, have done poorly. They do better in group races, but they've done poorly in listed races in recent years. Favourites in flat selling races, you've actually shown a profit. You've made, I think that's 4 pence in the pound on every favourite in a flat selling race. Why listed race favourites have struggled? Maybe it's difficult weighing up that transition between handicaps and minor pattern races. I don't know, but that would have been the worst of the three if you'd been laying them.
So there we are.
Sorry, that would have been the best of the three if you'd been laying. Sellers would have been the worst of the three if you'd been laying them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I got that completely wrong. That's what you're trying to say.
You were right about the novice choice bit.
Yeah, of course I was. Yeah. Question 3. I'm sort of 50-50 so far. Question 3. Which of the following factors is most important for horses at single-figure odds returning from an absence of 100 days or more? So which of these 3 things is the chief factor? Is it A, course, B, the month concerned, or C, the distance of the race? It's pure guess. I would have thought distance of race, really, but pure guess.
When I had a look through this, I couldn't find any relevant difference between whatever distance it was. I couldn't find much difference between what course it was. You wouldn't expect there to be. However, there does appear to be a sizable difference in how well horses do returning from an absence on the flat, depending on what time of year they're running. And it basically, from the start of the year, January, February, March, the further into the year you go, the worse they perform. And we can see the graphic here. January, February, you're almost breaking even. This is the last 5 years again. Horses at single figure odds, so less than 10 to 1.
And this is on the flat, is it?
On the flat. Return on investment. So in February, you're making 15 pence in the pound profit. Or you have been in the last 5 years. And you can see as the year goes on, it gradually eases down until you reach July and August, and that's why it's starting to get relevant now. Horses returning from an absence of more than 3 months do much worse, and we're talking about the same bracket in the betting market.
Yeah.
And I think basically, if a horse is coming back at this time of year from an absence, unless you know why.
Yeah.
For instance, the ground has suddenly turned soft and it's a horse who's been off waiting for soft ground. Unless you know why, I think it's best to tread with caution. It gets slightly better in September and October, and I'm sure that's down to horses that have been returning from the summer because they wouldn't have liked the fast ground, and then they've
waiting
brought
for
back.
softer ground.
So perhaps they haven't had a setback. It's more they've been waiting for the ground. But generally, once we get into this time of year, it's best to tread carefully with horses returning from a long absence.
Can we just apply that to a bit of news today that we spoke to David Redvers earlier about Harbour Watch, who was engaged at the weekend, still hasn't run since last Glorious Goodwood, and again, for whatever reason, will miss this weekend's engagement, and the year's now rolling on and on. He's a high-profile horse, Hugh. He'll probably be quite a short price when he does eventually get back on the track. He just might be the sort of horse, high profile, returning after a long break late in the summer, where the alarm bells should ring a little bit, I think. Yeah,
it's difficult to say with each individual horse, because obviously every horse is different, but all I can say is that as a whole, those kind of horses tend to be a little bit overbet. They tend to be a little bit too short in the betting compared to what they should be if they're returning at this time of year.
Okay, well that's an interesting one about the time of the year. Now on to question number 4. How are you doing so far? Hope you're doing better than I am. In a 4-year-old 5 furlong handicap, so 4-year-olds and older, 5 furlong handicap, which is likely to be the biggest negative for any given horse based solely on the following information? A, the trainer's last 20 runners have all been beaten. B, the sire had only 2 winners at this distance. Or C, the horse is favourite and 8 of the last 10 favourites in this race had been beaten. Well, I'm going to cast that one aside straight away, the last one. I don't see how that has any relevance
Quite
to
right.
Trainer's last 20 runners all been beaten, or the sire's only had 2 winners at this distance. I suppose the first one would depend, Hugh, on how well fancied the trainer's horses had been.
Yeah.
And if they were short, I would be worried. The sire has only 2 winners at this distance. From how many runners? That would be my answer.
Okay, I put in the two A and C, the ones about the favourite. The favourite is obviously nonsense. It's 10 completely separate horses.
Even I could see that.
Yeah, it's. Well, you still see people saying, you know, well, the favourite's been beaten in the last 5 renewals of this or something, as though it has any relevance today. It doesn't.
Do you know, Hugh, I did it at Royal Ascot, one of the big races.
Oh, John.
It was I think it was the St James's Palace Stakes. 6 of the last 7 favourites had won the race.
They're different horses.
And I told my 5 live viewers.
If it was the same horse that had been coming back every year.
But it's a great line, isn't it?
Well, I suppose it is. It's an easy line, isn't it?
Yeah.
The bit about the stable out of form, you're right. It depends on what price they've been. If it's a trainer who has a regularly has a 25% strike rate, then and he's had lots of favourites beaten, fine. But based on the information we use, the one about the sire, if it's a 5 furlong handicap for older horses and the sire's only had 2 winners at the distance, that means he's into at least his 3rd crop. And if a sire's into his 3rd crop and he's only had 2 winners at 5 furlongs, unless this individual horse has won over the trip or has shown his form over the trip, that would be the one that would make me wary.
Okay. Are you being a little bit devilish with this question 5 here? True or false, Hugh, is Hugh's next question. The only valuable use for the mute button for TV racing fans is to mute annoying pundits and presenters. Well, I would have thought, Hugh, that it's not the only valuable use, but I'm sure we all get muted from time to time, don't we?
The reason I put this in, I just wanted to make a point about, I'm sure we all do get muted. My view is that the other valuable use of the mute button is when you're watching a race back on the replay, and I do think it's worth muting the commentator. And I'm sorry to say that to you, John, in your position, but I do think that if you watch a race without a commentator, when you're trying to go back and look over the form, you will see it in a different light to if you watch it with the your eyes are naturally drawn to what the commentator tells you.
Yeah.
And I just find that I see things that perhaps I wouldn't do if I watch it on mute. By all means, then go back and watch it again with a commentator, because that will explain sometimes what happens in the betting market next time. Because if a commentator picks up on a horse in running that's unlucky, it's very rarely under bet next time. And I think it's important to try and differentiate between horses that have perhaps had trouble in running and have been picked up by the commentator, and the odd occasional one that isn't. And there are some sometimes that are missed, no matter how good the commentator is. So it's nothing against commentators. I think we've got some fantastic commentators around. But if you're watching replays or you're looking to spot horses for the future, I think it's worth considering watching them without a commentary at least once.
It's interesting, Hugh, there are a lot of people who play with their racing in running who will just not have the sound up, and that just sort of illustrates your point, doesn't it?
Fair enough.
In terms of concentration, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, more commentator bashing after this quick break.